Alright guys, so a new Total War 3 Kingdoms mechanic, or I guess a whole entire portion of gameplay, has been revealed today in a two-part video, the new Diplomacy. Al Bickman goes through our new Three Kingdoms Diplomacy section, and a lot of the overhauls of the UI, how the system works, and a lot of the relationships between the factions in Total War 3 Kingdoms. And I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty stoked on a lot of this. There are some things that I think might be a little cumbersome, or might just be a little AI buggy, and we'll talk about that as we kind of progress through this video. But as you guys know, some of us like who's omnipotent us, so some of the other influencers got a chance to talk to the Creative Assembly developers about what is coming out for Total War 3 Kingdoms. And one of the big things that they talked to us about was the spy network. So I imagine that the diplomacy section in the part 2 video will play some kind of hand in that spy network. So let's kind of go through this video here and take a look at things. I apologize if my pronunciations are off today. Oh, Al, calm down. You're a little loud today. I'm sorry if my pronunciations are a little off. I didn't get a chance to really sit down and practice some of these like I like to do, so that I make sure I don't sound like just a total Dynasty Warriors sounding pleb. But you know, I will nonetheless be butchering some of these here today. But we can see, we'll stop this as it jumps over to it. We're going to go through basically the individualistic characteristics of authority, expertise, cunning, resolve, instinct. Then we have the specific traits that I assume either you have 3 that you are locked into, or you gain 3. Let's see. As your character progresses. So instinct, this obviously has to do with charge speed, melee damage, recruitment cost, your charge bonus, a general's audacity and drive, their fervor in battle, and statecraft. Resolve increases their health, the population growth of the local commandery, which is probably the equivalent of a province. I don't know 100%. 3% armor, 7% fatigue resistance for all units. Those of you guys have been following Total War 3 Kingdoms a lot closer than I have probably know exactly what a commandery is, so I apologize if I misspoke there. But a general's willpower and heart, they're a commitment to the fight and to the people. Cunning, so this is ammunition, missile damage, income from all sources, and military supplies. So it's kind of interesting, right? How we're seeing this, how Resolve is definitely very much more of a melee-centric lord. And how instinct is, okay, do I want to have a vast army? And cunning is, okay, I want more of a lord dedicated to missiles. But at the same time, they also have a lot of benefits that are outside of just military, which I think is kind of cool. So you can dictate how your lord will be on a battlefield and how they will be on the campaign map, and I kind of like that. So then we've got expertise, which is missile firing rate, construction cost, melee attack rate, and melee defense. So it seems that, like, if you'd want expertise, even if you wanted to be a cunning lord, or even if you wanted to be a resolve lord, because it helps both portions of it. Then authority has got a missile block chance, public order, unit morale, and then battle running speed. So a general's presence and strength of character, the ability to lead and to govern. And you get, let's jump back a little bit on that one. Can't that do 5 seconds? We'll let that kind of pan for a little bit. But these traits are, again, I'm not really sure if you earn these or if your character starts out with them, like you see in Total War Warhammer 2, where your character has a certain trait it starts out with and they gain them over time, or if all characters start with the 3 set ones. Maybe especially the warlords in specific have 3 set traits that they all start off with, or they're randomized, who knows. But, you know, scholarly gets you your expertise, your cunning, but a reduction to instinct, but an increase to character experience. Indecisive decreases ambition to gain independence as an administrator, reduction to authority, increase to resolve, reduction to instinct, a reduction to character. Oh man, that's a washout on character experience. Fuck that. +1 cover cost for enemy spies. And we talked again about the spy system a little bit earlier, but the +5 to authority, cunning, and a reduction to resolve, and a 25% increase to character experience. So pretty nice. And then loyal, of course. So this gives us a really good idea of how these warlords are going to be constructed on as far as their actual abilities go. And we can see here that there's a progression of the faction itself, a second marquis, or a noble to a second marquis, to a duke, to a king. And it's kind of a pretty cool little system here. I can't wait to kind of dive deeper into it and what it means. Al kind of goes into what each one of these, like, okay, hey, we've got Zheng Yang. I know that was butchered. And how it can't produce certain things. So we know that Liu Biao's army is lacking certain things. So he needs to trade for it. He needs to reach out to other people. And this is a really cool mechanic that I like. This isn't just a typical approach to things where you just simply, okay, I'm going to trade. We're going to open up a trade agreement, and then I'm going to get your goods. You're going to get my goods. Apologize for the random cat in the background. But you can actually specifically trade for, say, I want more food. So we're going to see that coming up here in a little bit. So you can see he's got a livestock farm with Jiangling. So Saimao. I think I pronounced that right. I never know. There we go. So you can see that it talks about how you can request certain units of food per turn, and it gives you an idea of what that modifier looks like. Okay, if you're not going to offer anything, it's -11. It's just not going to happen. What I like about that a lot is that it gives you an idea outright the success chance of something without you going, okay, likely, very unlikely. You can actually negotiate, you can haggle, you can create a situation, you can create a trade agreement that makes sense for you that you can easily understand. That's probably been one of the least enjoyable things about the Total War series as a whole, has been dealing with very, obtuse, just arbitrary wording to describe whether or not a diplomatic offer or, threat is going to be honored or even go through. And you can kind of see here on the right your relative power strength, which I like. Rather than having it be represented in a number like it is in Total War Warhammer 2 and 1 and such, you actually get this, okay, they're below us by a little bit, or they're below us by a lot, or they're above us or above us by a lot. And you get an idea of their attitude towards us, their kind of demeanor is overall noble, we're overall trustworthy and noble. And I don't really know if this means that they're like a vassal state to us, or if they're they'll willfully subjugate. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, that is just kind of determines a certain role there are with it. Okay, they're at war, they're a vassal. I don't know what that is. So we'll take a look here as we kind of go through. I imagine it's a vassal state, but I imagine that this would be an easier process if it was. One of the big things too that I really enjoy is the kind of fine tuning from the menu itself. You can just press there's a way that you can press a button to make this work, and it will say, okay, here's the amount of money it will cause. Oh, let's go back just a little bit there. I want to take a look at that with you guys. So I do like this, how it shows, okay, so we can do peace, we can declare war, request permission from Saimao to declare war, request a military support, call to arms, because of course this unit is part of your alliance. This term cannot be proposed until this faction is part of your alliance. Okay, so maybe that's not a vassal state. Can aid them, we can call your vassals to arms, support independence, declare independence. So we have some of the mechanics that we saw from Total War Empire. The supporting of independence and kind of helping out with any kind of stuff like that, those kind of political intrigues. We've got a lot of stuff that we see from other Total Wars coming back into the fold. Like at the very end of this video, Al Bickman talks about gifting regions is coming back into the game. That's an amazing way to present things. It's almost like they tried to really combine things from Crusader Kings or just like the Paradox games as a whole, which are overly very heavy on this screen, right? You spend a lot of time here if we're playing Crusader Kings 2, setting up like, your de facto, setting up your marriages, setting up your rights to conquer things. And obviously that's not going to be the huge case here, because at the end of the day, Total War is a war simulator more so than an empire simulator, I would argue, because it's Total War. It's how that works. And Crusader Kings is more of a simulation of that time. So that's, I guess, the big difference in my mind. That's a personal opinion. But you can see here that you can request payments, make payments. You can request regular payment installs. So, a 0 APR on your new iPhone 15, which costs $450,000. Request food trade, offer food trade, arrange a marriage, trade territory, trade agreements. So I like that it is a little bit more granular. You do have to spend a little bit more time on this screen, but I feel like the time you spend on the screen is going to be well invested. Like I know how when I want to do anything on, let's look at this one as well. If I want to do anything on Total War Warhammer 2, I have to open up the diplomacy, click each one, offer what I want to offer, go to the next one, offer what I want to offer. Like it's a very tedious process. And we're going to see in a little bit how they've streamlined that here in Total War Three Kingdoms. And I couldn't be more jazzed, but we can see vassalize, become a vassal of, which is interesting. So that little symbol looks like the vassal symbol, I thought. So I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. Liberate, annex, abdicate. So you've got a lot of stuff going here. Confederate. So I like that you've got all this. Here's some of the warlords that we'll probably be able to either start as. I imagine the whole entire different flags are portions of which warlords we'll be able to start with. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's probably not right. I'm probably totally wrong. So let's move forward a little bit here. I think this was the one I really like. So we can do, you can request money, which is awesome. Press that button, requesting money, then make payments back on that money, which is really cool. So you can create the exact same scenario that we have in the United States, where the US owes China a ton of money. But also, moreover, you can get into a situation where, okay, this is a really good trade partner of mine, or a really good just diplomatic individual in the geopolitical state, and they like me, but we're not a vassal of one another, or we're not in a really, really, really strong alliance, but they're not threatened by anything. They like me a lot. I need a lot of money right now because I'm fighting a war against the Han Empire, and I need to get this quick infusion of money. And you can do this pretty well here. So the one thing I don't really like is, they talk about it very briefly, but it shows how you're trustworthy. It basically, it dictates like, okay, are you trustworthy? Is someone likely to, there it is, right? Yeah, of course, it just went right by it. So your respect rating shows how much the world respects you for your actions. Now, my problem is, my biggest problem with the Total War series as a whole, and I hope that they fix this in Total War Three Kingdoms, is that sure, I could be trustworthy, and more often than not, I don't really ever break any kind of diplomatic relation in a Total War game unless it's thematic for me. Like if I'm playing Skaven in Warhammer, I'm going to break that shit left and right. Or if I'm French or British in medieval or empire, I'm going to have that as a alliance against the opposite as just like a situational, like circumstantial benefit to me. But I cannot wait to break that as a French or British against French or British. But for the most part, I honor these. The AI, on the other hand, will not. So what's penalizing the AI here? That's the big thing I want to talk about, is that there's this great diplomatic menu and there's all these great options, but okay, if Tsai Mao decides to break his truce with me, are all of his bros going to no longer want to do any diplomatic relations with him? Is his trustworthiness going to drop? Like, I need to see something that punishes the computer equally as much as it punishes the PC, because then anything you do with a computer is only honored as long as the computer wants to do it. And I guess that argument can be made for any diplomatic relation in real world and in a game. But how often have you guys played games like, again, Total War Warhammer, or even Rome 2, where you've pretty much beaten a faction to near submission? They've issued a peace treaty because you've already opened up a second theater of war, and you're like, okay, well, I'll just peace treaty that away because it's just going to take me too long to get to their faraway provinces. And then 3 turns later, they move 3 stacks next to one of your cities and then break the treaty. Like, there's no real repercussion for the AI to honor their diplomatic stances. And I hope that this system, this trustworthy system, however it kind of pans itself out, plays into that. Or we get a sense by this system what AI is more likely to break those diplomatic bonds, because I've never seen the trustworthy thing ever be actually enforced from a mechanical standpoint. Let's kind of jump forward here. I wanted to, this is pretty cool here. So you can, again, you're making regular payments, which is really great. I like that. You know, if you request 1,000, you make 350 coin regular payments. You're paid up in a little over 3 turns. So let's see here. And you can basically issue an ultimatum like, hey, give me money or else we'll go to war. And if they'll look at your relative power to yours. Obviously, they're about equal. They're similar, right? So they're going to go, not so likely. And then they'll actually go to war with you if this doesn't succeed. And the nice thing here is they said that stuff like this is very risky. So they wanted it to not have, like, so coerce right there, I'm sorry about the red bar, doesn't have an actual indication of whether or not it'll succeed. No plus or minus here. So you might completely lose this. And if you do, you're going to be at war with Yuan Shu. If you take a look at this, it sees as evil opportunist. So maybe that is basically the way that we get an idea of, okay, diplomatic relations with Yuan Shu are not going to be as good. Yeah, you're about to commit an act of treachery. Now, the last thing I want to talk about real quick here is the quick deal list. And I love this because, again, how many times have we all spent in the Total War diplomatic menu having to offer a trade agreement to the first 5 fucking empire factions in Total War? Or if you're Rome, you're spending all the time with all the Grecian or also Roman factions trying to issue non-aggression pacts and trade agreements. It's so time consuming, especially when you have a faction that has a lot of natural friends. With this, you click the button, boom, and it shows you who's immediately going to accept it and who's might accept it or who's just outright going to deny it. So you click it. Click it, Al. Click it, you naughty minx. There you go. Boom. Negotiate. Done. Done. Like, that is so cool. You can just go down the list, pop, issue these out, be done with it. Because I'm okay with this. Because the reason I like this so much is because I think that they realized, hey, we're going to be spending a lot more time in the diplomacy menu for all these other things. We have to streamline all the other crap that, you just are already going to do when you go into the diplomacy menu. So I like this approach that it does streamline the shit that we would have normally done and also makes the new things, there's more of an emphasis because I feel like I've got more time to invest on them. You don't want to spend so much time in the diplomacy menu because that's not the crux of the game. The crux of the game is getting to war. It's a total war game. These are times in history which nations or civilizations have dedicated 100% of their resources to war. That's what total war means. So I'm so stoked to see this new diplomacy system. I want to see what the part 2 is. That's what Al was saying, where he's going to talk a little bit about how the gifting of regions works and stuff like that. So join me when that comes out, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But as always, guys, thanks so much for joining me here today. Hopefully you enjoyed this little rundown of the new diplomacy system. If you want, you can watch this video and hear Al talk about every little thing. A lot of it is me just kind of expanding on other stuff I already know or stuff I've just kind of learned from the past. But as always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to comment, subscribe, like, all that action. But have a good one and take care.